why don't we have a hearing? With that, good morning, everybody. I'd like to call today's hearing to order. Welcome, one and all. Today we've gathered, as you know, to discuss the nation's regional commissions and the integral role that they play in strengthening our communities, our workforce, and our infrastructure. We're going to hear from testimony from our bipartisan panel of witnesses representing 5 different regional commissions: the Delta Regional Authority, the Denali Commission, the Northern Border Regional Commission, the Southeast Crescent Regional Commission, and the Southwest Border Regional Commission. To our witnesses, Dr. Wiggins, Dr. Clyburn Reed, Mr. Saunders. You pronounce your name Saunders, don't you? We have a fellow on our team here who pronounces his name Sanders. So try not to confuse him. I'm sure you do. Mr. Sanchez, Juan Sanchez, and Ms. Fenton, right? Thank you all for joining us. Good to see you. For those who may not be familiar with our regional commissions, let me just start by discussing what our regional commissions do and why your work is important. Our nation's federal regional commissions are federal-state partnerships that Congress has created over a period of time, starting in the 1960s to implement community and economic development strategies in some of our most disadvantaged communities. Our regional commissions work closely with the Economic Development Administration at federal government level in order to build durable regional economies throughout the United States of America. One might ask, why is this mission important? And to answer that question, let's paraphrase President Abraham Lincoln, who once said that the role of the federal government is to do for the people what they cannot do for themselves. And this is what the regional commissions attempt to do every day when they provide financial resources and partner with state governments to help communities prosper. Working hand in glove with the Economic Development Administration, our regional commissions are reinvigorating some of America's most distressed regional economies. I know just how important this kind of work is for our communities right now. Right after I came home from my 3rd and final tour in Southeast Asia during the Vietnam War as a naval flight officer, I moved to Delaware, earned an MBA, and I went to work coming out of graduate school for the Delaware Economic Development Authority. And although I worked there for less than a year, this experience has helped influence almost every part of my career since then, including my time as governor of the state of Delaware. When I was privileged to serve as governor of Delaware, a job that Senator Capito's father once held, not in Delaware, but in West Virginia, more jobs were created then in Delaware than any other 8-year period in the history of our state. In truth, though, I didn't create a single one of those jobs as governor. Governors don't create jobs. Senators don't create jobs. And regional commissions, as we're going to be honest, don't create them either. What we do together and what we need to do is to create a nurturing environment for job creation and job preservation throughout America. The work of our regional commissions, from workforce development and infrastructure improvements to promoting access to capital and broadband deployment, is necessary in order to create that nurturing environment. Today, we look forward to hearing what regional commissions are doing well and what improvements might help these agencies work even more effectively in order to enable disadvantaged communities to recover and to thrive. As members of this committee have oftentimes heard me say, we need to find out what works and do more of that. Regional commissions have used bipartisan infrastructure law funding to support more than 300 projects in 19 states, 300 projects in 19 states. Commissions have used their funding in diverse and innovative ways. For example, last year, the Delta Regional Authority funded infrastructure projects to support a $5.6 billion with EB, $5.6 billion investment by Ford in a new electric truck manufacturing plant in Tennessee. In Alaska, the Denali Commission provided technical assistance to the Alaska Native Tribal Consortium to help secure over $90 million in federal funding for broadband infrastructure in remote communities. And earlier this year, the Northern Border Regional Commission awarded a pre-development grant to a Vermont community which once completed, will enable the private sector to create over 125 mixed-income housing units in an area facing a major housing crisis. As our colleagues will recall, in March, this community unanimously passed legislation to reauthorize each of our regional commissions that are represented before us here today, as well as the Economic Development Administration. Enacting this legislation bill, this reauthorization bill, into law is a crucial part of the work we must do in order to ensure that our regional commissions can continue to support economic growth in communities of all sizes throughout our country. In fact, this legislation would also create 2 new regional commissions, the Mid-Atlantic Coast Regional Commission and the Southern New England Regional Commission. In closing, let me just say that we look forward to hearing more today from our witnesses about the impact that our regional commissions are having in communities both large and small. And I look forward to working with our colleagues on this committee to ensure that our regional commissions have the tools and the resources that they need in order to support economic development and enable communities across our country to succeed. With that, Senator Capito, you are recognized. Please proceed.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Chairman Carper, and thank you all for being here today, and thanks for this hearing. Again, I want to welcome our witnesses, the federal co-chairs from the Delta Regional Authority, Denali Commission, Northern Border Regional Commission, Southeast Crescent Regional Commission, and the Southwest Border Regional Commission, and thank all of you for what we're going to hear. The strength of our regional commissions lies in their partnerships and coordination between the federal government and the states that they are in their region. Often, the governor of each state that is within the geographic target of the regional commission serves on the commission. Typically, a regional commission is co-chaired by a federal political appointee that is confirmed with the advice and consent of the Senate, and one governor that is selected from the states covered by the commission. These entities utilize federal funding to carry out state and local economic development priorities, and the chairman has lined out a few of those for us today. The Regional Commission's intergovernmental coordination is key to the success of the economic development efforts. Working with the appropriate states, these entities often make investments in various areas such as basic infrastructure and workforce, training, development, and that are critical to ensuring long-term economic growth and opportunity in their communities. Further, regional commissions must work in tandem with the EDA, the Economic Development Administration. Since EDA and the regional commissions have similar missions, they must strategically coordinate in order to avoid duplicative efforts and investments. So we're here today to talk about best practices and success stories from some of our regional commissions that will help us to strike the balance and ensure our federal investment is implemented efficiently to achieve the maximum benefit for the states and the communities that they serve. I look forward to hearing the ways to strengthen your partnerships with your states and your coordination with the EDA. Working with the Appalachian Regional Commission in my home state of West Virginia, I know how beneficial regional commissions can be and the positive impacts that they can have on communities. Our colleague's wife, Gail Manchin, is the federal co-chair of the ARC, and I see Guy Land back there, who worked with for many, many years on the ARC. They're not on the panel today because the legislation that we have, we've already reauthorized the ARC. How about that? How'd that happen? And so today we want to make sure that we give you all the due attention. But anyway, they've invested $63 million just last year from federal and matched federal funding and then matched projects in 66 projects just across our state. These projects served over 3,000 households and businesses, trained and educated over 2,000 students and workers. I know each of the Regional Commission federal co-chairs before us is working in their areas to make the same type of impactful investments. To further these efforts back in March, Chairman Carper and I brought forward our Bipartisan Economic Development Reauthorization Act before this committee, and the bill was reported favorably to the Senate by unanimous voice vote. Title II of that legislation reauthorizes a number of the regional commissions from the fiscal years 2025 through 2029. The bill will expand the type of activities that those regional commissions can carry out and provide flexibility to tailor those activities to the most pressing needs of their own communities. The bill also modernizes regional commissions' administration requirements to ensure more efficient operations. It's important that the Congress regularly reauthorize the regional commissions and examine what works best within their authorities and programs in order to ensure that they can continue to carry out their missions effectively. We look forward to working with our congressional colleagues so that the EDA reauthorization bill can become law. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I yield back to you.
Thank you, ma'am. I've been summoned to go to another, not a hearing, but actually a business meeting. We're marking up a number of bills in the Committee on Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs. I need to go there now. Senator Capito has kindly agreed to preside while I'm away. And I think the first order of business might be to, after you've introduced 4 of our witnesses, to recognize Senator Sullivan to introduce our witness from the Denali Commission. Thank you for doing this. I'll be back as soon as I can. Thank you.
All right. So I am pleased to welcome Dr. Corey Wiggins, the Federal Co-Chair for the Delta Regional Authority, to our committee. Corey has worked across academia, state government, nonprofits, and the private sector throughout his career, and he has served as the head of the Delta Regional Authority since 2022. We're also joined today by Dr. Jennifer Clyburn-Reed, the Federal Co-Chair of the Southeast Crescent Regional Commission. Throughout her career, she's been a small business owner, public servant, educator, and community advocate. She has served as head of the Southeast Crescent Regional Commission since 2021. Third, I'd like to welcome Chris Saunders, the Federal Co-Chair of the Northern Border Regional Commission, to our committee. Chris is no stranger to the Senate, having spent many years here as a member of Senator Leahy's staff. He has served as the head of the Northern Border Regional Commission since 2022. Finally, I'm pleased to welcome Juan Sanchez, the Federal Co-Chair from the Southwest Border Regional Commission. He also is no stranger to the U.S. Senate. Before joining the Southwest Border Regional Commission, he worked for Senator Heinrich. He has served as the head of the commission since 2022. So, Senator Sullivan, I know you have an introduction of Ms. Fenton.
Thank you, Senator Capito, and the chair. Thank you for the opportunity to introduce Jocelyn Fenton, who's the interim federal co-chair of the Denali Commission. So a little bit of background on the Denali Commission. This was Senator Stevens and Congressman Young's focus on bringing national attention to the immense challenges in unique situations that many of my constituents in rural Alaska face. So they designed the Denali Commission with members of Congress in the Senate and the House for a way in which to address these unique challenges that are often make life in Alaska much more costly and complex than our friends in the lower 48, as we call the rest of you guys, except Hawaii. Let me give you a couple examples. Most of our villages cannot be accessed by roads. So it's either you got to fly there, or if they're on a river, take a boat or a snow machine during the winter. That's 86% of Alaskan communities are not connected by roads. In the lower 48, people can't even conceive of that. Most of our state is that. We have over 30 communities in Alaska that have no running water or flush toilets. So think about that. American citizens who use what we call honey buckets in Alaska. Thousands of Alaskans use honey buckets. That's third world sanitation. That's just not right. By the way, Madam Chair, some of the most patriotic communities in the country, my state has more veterans per capita than any state in the country, and Alaska Natives, where most of these challenges are, and their villages serve at higher rates in the military than any other ethnic group in the country. And yet, they go to the bathroom with honey buckets. Most of these communities are powered by diesel and are not on any kind of grid system. So I like to say Alaska's resource-rich, infrastructure-poor. We have less road miles than Connecticut, and yet we are 120 times bigger than Connecticut. So the Denali Commission has catalyzed much-needed development, particularly with a focus on infrastructure, water and sewer, power generation, transmission facilities, basic clinics, and communication systems, much of which is just expected if you lived in the lower 48. Through vital tribal, state, and federal partnerships, the Commission has worked on a whole host of these kind of infrastructure projects and workforce development projects that bring resiliency to over 300 communities, as I've said. Due to its proven success, the Denali Commission has become an invaluable asset for Alaska and our nation on building out infrastructure, which is what I think every member of the Senate agrees is important for all Americans. And just recently, the Department of Defense, recognizing the Commission's reach and strategic importance, identified it as a key partner in implementing the national strategy for the Department of Defense for the Arctic region. So an even broader element of the Denali Commission's relevance. With regard to Jocelyn, she's been doing a great job. She serves in a number of capacities, and including this co-chair position on the Denali Commission, several boards involving our military, involving our Native communities, involving our universities, involving Arctic leadership initiatives. Jocelyn, I have no idea when you sleep when I was reading your resume, but it's really impressive. Thanks for your great work. Thanks for your dedication and commitment to the people of Alaska. And Madam Chair, this is a commission that not a lot of people know about, but it's really punched above its weight on issues that matter to all Alaskans and all Americans. That's basic infrastructure, which this committee is all about. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator. Corey, before I ask you to proceed, I looked up and looked out and saw my colleague over there from the House. I served together for 14 years. Congressman Jim Clyburn is here from South Carolina. Thank you for coming. Are you watching over? Yeah. So welcome to you, and thanks for coming over. So Corey, you are up for 5 minutes.
Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, my name is Dr. Corey Wiggins, and I have the privilege of serving as the Federal Co-Chairman of the Delta Regional Authority. Since its establishment in 2000, the agency's purpose has remained unchanged: to promote and encourage economic development in the DRA region. DRA's financial assistance programs provide targeted investments in 252 counties and parishes across our 8-state region, including parts of Alabama, Arkansas, Illinois, Kentucky, Louisiana, Mississippi, Missouri, and Tennessee. Every 5 years, DRA, by statute, is responsible for creating a regional development plan with public input that is approved by our Board of Governors. This plan serves as a guide to ensure we are meeting the needs of the region and DRA's mission. In February 2023, the authority approved and released Navigating the Currents of Opportunity, DRA Regional Development Plan 4. The strategic goals identified for DRA over the next 5 years include expanding and investing in the resiliency of the region's public infrastructure, improving networks of agencies, organizations, businesses, and educational institutions providing workforce development opportunities, strengthening and supporting the long-term growth of micro and small businesses, expanding efforts to support community placemaking and capacity building. DRA has pursued its vision of a region as a place where people and businesses have access to economic opportunities and vibrant, sustainable, and resilient communities. We execute on this vision through our programs that serve the region and through investments that support basic public infrastructure and transportation improvements, workforce development programming, and expanding opportunity for small business development. Some examples of DRA programs and their impact include, from 2017 to 2023, infrastructure, workforce development, and small business development investments made through DRA's State's Economic Development Assistance Program resulted in over 500,000 families positively impacted by infrastructure projects. More than 160,000 individuals trained in workforce development programs, and over 36,000 jobs either created or retained in the region. In over 5 years, DRA's Community Infrastructure Fund, a program focused on basic public infrastructure investments, have resulted in nearly 311,000 families impacted by infrastructure projects, with approximately 15,000 jobs created or retained in the region. In total, for fiscal year 2023, DRA invested over $74 million in funding throughout the region. The expected impact of this funding for nearly 165 projects in the region includes over 33,000 families affected via improved access to infrastructure, approximately 9,000 jobs created or retained, and over 31,000 individuals trained through workforce program training. As we continue to assess our FY24 projects and impact data, some highlighted regional investments include awarding more than $10 million in investments to 23 projects in the region through the Delta Workforce Grant Program, an initiative designed to support workforce training and education programs. We awarded over $1.8 million to communities through the Strategic Planning Grant Program, DRA's newest initiative to support capacity building in the region. DRA supports Title II of the Economic Development Reauthorization Act of 2004, which would reauthorize and update the programs for DRA and other regional commissions. Title II would bolster the place-based impact of regional commissions by further supporting economic development and improving infrastructure in underserved and distressed communities across the nation. We thank the committee for including key proposals from the 2025 budget in the bill, such as a user fee authority for DRA's Delta Doctors Program, repeal of DRA's sunsetting provision, and recognition of tribes as eligible recipients. DRA and its sister commissions serve a distinguished purpose and uniquely critical role within each of our regions. DRA's impact in the region is not just limited to the quantitative outputs from agency investments, but is also connected to our reputation as a regional partner working closely with local governments, local development districts, and our member states to help find solutions to the challenges experienced in the region. It is critical that DRA remains a vital partner in the region to foster inclusive communities, strengthen regional collaboration, achieve sustained long-term economic development, and produce meaningful opportunities for all people in the DRA region. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we will hear from Dr. Jennifer Clyburn-Reed. Jennifer, please proceed with your testimony. Thank you.
Good morning, Chairman Carper and Ranking Member Capito, committee members, and staff. Thank you for the opportunity to testify on behalf of the Southeast Crescent Regional Commission and share the progress that we've made since becoming active in early 2022. I begin by expressing support for Title II of the Economic Development Reauthorization Act. Many thanks to the members of Congress and SCRC governors who have supported the Commission as we continue to assist its 51 million residents. The region spans over 210,000 square miles across 7 states, parts of Alabama, Mississippi, and Georgia, North Carolina, South Carolina, Virginia, and the whole state of Florida. Currently, SCRC covers the largest region of all active regional commissions. Historically, rural economies were sustained by agriculture and manufacturing industries, but these sectors have depreciated over the years. As a result, many rural areas are strangled with job losses and economic stagnation, prompting the need for regional commissions to spark economic innovation and revitalization efforts. As a member agency of the Rural Partners Network, SCRC has worked with USDA Rural Development and other federal agencies to leverage resources to rural communities. Almost 3 years ago, I sat before this committee as a nominee. At the time, I identified 3 goals to pursue once confirmed: assess the needs of each community, identify regional challenges, and determine the path to move our distressed counties from transitional to attainment status. Data was compiled from a 7-state survey, virtual coffee and conversations, and collaboration sessions to author the 5-year strategic plan. Participating states also created economic development plans that illuminated each governor's priorities, also aligning with SCRC's strategic plan and statutory language. During that same hearing, Senator Carper suggested that I find what works and do more of that. Early data collected found gaping holes in healthcare access. In response, SCRC implemented the J-1 visa waiver program, already offered by other regional commissions and proven highly successful. With the help of the Department of State, SCRC processed its first application in November of 2022, and to date has successfully placed 183 doctors in where healthcare access was insufficient or absent. SCRC also commissioned a comprehensive health assessment for all 428 counties, which is now complete and will be published along with our first white paper next month. Research shows a strong correlation between underemployment and negative health outcomes. A living wage shapes opportunities for childcare, education, food security, and housing. A responsive healthcare system helps foster economic growth. While these concepts are widely recognized in theory, SCRC is collecting data and acting on it to show how healthcare access contributes to achieving longstanding economic goals. I also stated during that hearing the Commission would fund entities that make economic development a sustainable priority. In preparing to launch the first grant cycle, SCRC executed cooperative agreements with all participating states and 55 local development districts. The launch of the inaugural $20 million seed grant program yielded 363 pre-applications, requesting $119 million. The competitive selection process narrowed that pool to 103 full applications, and I am honored to report that the 56 projects selected exceeded internal expectations and statutory requirements. Of the 129 counties impacted by the 56 projects, 103, or 80%, are in distressed counties. The authorizing statute requires 50% of grant funds to be spent on projects in distressed counties. SCRC exceeded that by spending 77% of grant funds in distressed counties on 42 projects. 40 projects, or 71%, are infrastructure projects, which exceeds the 40% required. SCRC looks forward to continuing partnerships with local, state, and federal entities that will assist in achieving the mission to alleviate the effects of poverty and ensure a prosperous future for all who call the Southeast Crescent home. Chairman Carper, Ranking Member Capito, and members of the committee, thank you, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you. Next, Chris Saunders.
Thank you, Chairman Carper. Thank you, Ranking Member Capito, members of the committee, for the invitation to participate in this hearing and the opportunity to talk a little bit about the Northern Border Regional Commission. I think, as you've heard from my peers, that and in some of your own opening statements, there's something unique about the federal commissions. The collaboration that's required, the elevation of local needs, the input from state partners, it's unique among federal agencies in terms of how we develop a collaborative process. I think there are few places across the federal government where this model of collaboration is included, and likewise, our almost singular focus on place-based economic development is found not many other places within the federal government. My hope today, in addition to complement the testimony of my colleagues, is to highlight a couple characteristics of the Northern Border Regional Commission that demonstrate how we try and advance the well-being of the residents of our region. Specifically, it's been touched on a little bit this morning, our ability to effectively deliver resources to rural America, our Commission's ability to focus resources on a specific regional need or an opportunity, and the non-monetary ways that commissions can deliver assistance. It's been my experience the regional commissions are one of the most impactful models for directing federal public investment to rural America. Thanks to the significant flexibility Congress has granted commissions in the way we design and administer our programs, we can really consider how best to deliver assistance in a manner that reflects the needs and really recognizes the capacity strengths of rural places. At NBRC, we've intentionally designed pathways into our programs that elevate first-time applicants and rural communities, and we're able to match technical assistance to small communities who have extremely modest municipal budgets and often rely on part-time or volunteer staff. Certainly our focus on rural places is no accident. The largest city in our service area has just over 65,000 residents. But even within this predominantly rural landscape, we're focused on directing resources to economically distressed areas that too often have been unable to harness federal funding to improve their economies. To that point, nearly 60% of the grants we made in the last two rounds of our Catalyst program were made to communities under 5,000 people. In short, we are getting help to the places that would otherwise never be able to participate in a federal grant program. Beyond the flexibility that commissions have in program design, we can similarly pivot our focus to address key needs as they emerge. In the NBRC territory, the forest products industry is one such example. For generations, the wood products and paper industries were really significant drivers of the economy in our region. And as these legacy industries have faltered, it's really been a regional priority to find ways to develop new products and markets. So for the past 6 years, we focused resources through specific grant offerings to support innovation and infrastructure within the forest products industry, and these investments are having their intended impacts. This ability to move towards emergent challenges is also evident in our work to address major region-wide needs, specifically a lack of access to childcare and to housing. The significant funds that Congress provided to NBRC through the bipartisan infrastructure law allowed NBRC to revise our flagship grant program to prioritize these needs. These changes are likewise having the intended impact. In the past month, I've had the good fortune to travel to openings and groundbreakings for new childcare facilities in Ticonderoga, New York, Middlebury, Vermont, and Rangeley, Maine. These investments will result in hundreds of families receiving help so that they can work. Happy to report there's a comparable level of activity in our infrastructure portfolio, with numerous awards that are laying the groundwork for the development of hundreds of units of housing. While the financial resources that the Commission awards through grants are certainly the most prevalent ways that we make assistance available in the region, it's important to note that NBRC and its peers have other tools as well. A couple of years ago, we recognized the need to organize and bolster the outdoor recreation industry within our region, and we coordinated multiple symposiums which have proven to be catalyzing events for our states and informed NBRC's own work in this space. Outdoor rec speaks to a critical additional role of the Commission. We're able to put a focus on innovations that expand emerging industries that have the potential to provide meaningful, well-paying jobs in areas where legacy industries have reduced growth and left residents with fewer economic opportunity. It's my hope that this brief overview offers some insight into the role that commissions play in the economic development ecosystem, and I'm appreciative again of the opportunity to testify and look forward to your questions.
Next, we will hear from Juan Sanchez, if you want to proceed with your testimony.
Thank you. Good morning, Chairman Carper, Ranking Member Capito, members of the committee and staff. Thank you for the opportunity to testify on behalf of the Southwest Border Regional Commission. I'm Juan Sanchez, the first federal co-chair of the commission, and I'm honored to share our progress and challenges as we aim to serve the Southwest. The commission comprises 93 counties and 35 million people throughout Arizona, New Mexico, California, and Texas. Our aim is to help foster economic development, help create jobs, and empower our communities. In January of 2023, I was entrusted with the responsibility to establish the commission and develop its operating infrastructure from the ground up. My first task was to secure the participation of our 4 governors, whose ideology spans the political spectrum. It speaks to the importance of the commission that we were able to reach a consensus, and as of June 2023, all 4 states were participating. Together, we have reached agreements on the operating procedures, funding allocations, administrative supports, our grants process, and a vision for the commission. I would like to thank our first state co-chair, Governor Michelle Lujan Grisham from New Mexico, our other governors, governors alternatives, and staff who have dedicated their time, financial resources, and efforts to ensure the success of the commission. Once convened, our next challenge was to assess our region. We identified barriers to economic development and created our strategic goals. We assessed the condition of each one of our counties, utilizing their demographic data, including poverty rate, per capita income, and unemployment rate. We ranked and designated each one of our counties. Of the SBRC's 93 counties, 37 were classified as distress, 41 as transitional, and 15 as attainment. Overall, the Commission's average poverty rate stands at 18%, significantly higher than the national average of 12.6%, and translated into 5 million people living in poverty. We identify unique distressed communities such as colonias, which is the Spanish word for neighborhood. Colonias are economically distressed communities located within 150 miles of the U.S.-Mexico border, often lacking a governance structure and basic infrastructure. Families living in colonias are without adequate housing or essential services like potable water, plumbing, sewage, paved roads, broadband. Approximately 800,000 people lack adequate drinking water and sanitation, with 1/3 of the folks living in colonias having no access to water or wastewater facilities. The commission also comprises 51 federally recognized tribes. Collectively, our tribes have a poverty rate of 44% and an unemployment rate of 12%. It's a drastic comparison to the U.S. averages of 12 and 4.2 respectively. Tribal communities also face severe infrastructure challenges and lack adequate drinking water and sanitation facilities, as well as other essential services such as broadband. The commission seeks to enhance tribal capacity and promote self-governance and has set aside at minimum 5% of our total funds to tribal communities. We identified other interrelated challenges. The commission's region suffers critical shortages of healthcare professionals. Every county within the region is designated a health professional shortage area by HHS in primary health, mental health, and dental care. We additionally conducted extensive outreach with hundreds of community stakeholders across 4 states, including mayors, economists, nonprofits, universities, chambers of commerce, industry groups, and more, to identify the most significant barriers to economic development. The most common barriers, as addressed by our stakeholders, include capacity gaps. Capacity remains a significant barrier in our distressed communities, which often lack technical, managerial, and financial capacity. Distressed communities often stated that their minimal staff is overburdened with administrative duties. Secondary barrier was matching requirements. The SBRC serves some of the most poorest communities in the country, often lacking a substantial tax base to generate revenue and secure matching funds. Federal and state grant programs often require a match, which is a significant barrier for our most impoverished communities. Third was data availability. The respondents indicated that there is insufficient access to data and research on the issues impacting their community, noting that much of the research is conducted by entities outside of their community. Finally, the communities felt that they were participating and were disadvantaged when competing for competitive grants. The lack of technical support, resources, and specialized staff in these communities, such as grant writers and grant administrators, puts them at a significant disadvantage in competitive grant competitions. To address some of these barriers, the commission, to help advance equity, the commission will allocate 50% of its total funds to distressed areas. To build capacity, our new grant program allows for an increased use of administrative funds for up to 30%. And we are also allowing local development districts to apply on behalf of distressed communities and serve as an administrative agent. To reduce cost and try to eliminate the matching requirements, the SBSC aims to co-invest with other federal agencies and has signed agreements with USDA Rural Development and other federal agencies to co-invest in distressed communities. Moving forward, the commission will host a series of open houses in partnership with our local universities. We'll publish our 5-year plan in November, begin conducting grant webinars in December, and we are on track to open our first grant competition in 2025. Finally, I want to wish a sincere appreciation to the committee for their work on S3991. We're particularly thankful for the provisions which waive the matching requirements for Indian tribes and colonias, extend our authorization through FY 2029, and provide the commission the ability to offer demonstration healthcare projects. We look forward to working with Congress and are pleased to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And next we'll have Ms. Fenton, if you want to give us your testimony.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Ranking Member Capito, and honorable members of the committee and staff. Thank you for inviting me to testify and providing an opportunity to present you with an update of the Denali Commission in concert with the other regional commissions. We thank you and the members of Congress who have recognized the achievements and value of the Denali Commission over the last 25 years, whose purpose is to deliver services of the federal government in the most cost-effective manner. Alaska is home to 229 tribes and 160 municipalities, ranging in size from about 20 to 300,000 residents. 86% of municipalities are not connected to the road system, which means everything needs to be barged or flown in. It can increase, it can drive up costs and create logistical challenges, especially in inclement weather. Many of the smaller communities do not have much in the way of a cash economy, and many who live there have deep-rooted cultural and subsistence lifestyle, which not only provides the customs and foods they consume, but they are also techniques and traditions that are valued and that should be preserved for future generations. For fiscal year 2024, the Commission will be making awards that total just over $32 million, of which 93% will go to distressed areas. I like to say we were Justice 40 before Justice 40 was cool. The Denali Commission has been most successful by focusing on preparing projects for larger funding programs, by providing planning or design assistance, gap funding when projects experience unexpected cost increases or delays, or by contributing to a community's non-federal match local requirement. In those areas where the infrastructure base is frequently decades behind the rest of the country, municipalities often don't have tax authority, and there's not much to tax if they did. We appreciate the consideration of lowering local match requirements for distressed tribal and Alaska Native villages. The Denali Commission and other regional commissions have the unique authorities and tools and are best positioned to support disadvantaged rural populations. In the last 6 years, the Commission has expanded its program offerings, diversifying back into its legacy programs and adding new programs to reflect critical needs, the public funding available at the time, and to leverage partnership opportunities. Over the life of the Commission, we have modified programs to reflect the needs and public funding available at the time. There are 3 ways that we facilitate investments. 1, priority lists, such as the Rural Power System Upgrade Program, the Bulk Fuel Upgrade Program, statewide threat assessment for communities facing environmental threats, the Sanitation Deficiency System, and in the early 2000s, a list for rural primary care clinics. 2, annual competitive funding opportunities. And 3, individual discretionary funding through justifications, partnerships, and transfers. Allow me to share some of the highlights that reflect the administration's goals and describe some innovative partnerships. For energy, our program focuses on rural power system upgrades while incorporating renewables. A recently completed 900-kilowatt wind turbine in connection to the existing electrical distribution system between Stebbins and St. Michael now provides fluctuation-resistant wind energy, offsetting hundreds of gallons of diesel each year and facilitating days of diesel-off operation in both communities. For bulk fuel, Denali Commission is at the forefront of addressing the urgent need to upgrade Alaska's aging bulk fuel farms, which are vital for powering communities. Despite a $250 million investment over 25 years, less than 50% of the need has been met, while climate change accelerates infrastructure decay. The Commission is exploring efficiencies and advocating for urgent action to prevent an impending environmental crisis due to deteriorating fuel storage infrastructure, some of which is up to 75 years old. Many tanks have outlived their foundations and are sitting on the ground, some without secondary containment. For transportation, in fiscal years 22 and 23, through newfound partnerships and collaboration with the State of Alaska and federal highways, the recently reinvigorated transportation program awarded 59 surface and waterfront improvement projects for a combined total of $33 million for the direct benefit of 49 communities around the state. For housing, notable projects to encourage housing innovation and de-risk private development include affordable housing assessments and strategy development, climate-specific housing best practices, site control, platting, surveying, given land ownership and complications on tribal lands, and continually evaluating the housing life cycle, assessing timber utilization, better sawmills to develop rural home kits, locally produced trusses, and everything in between. The Commission is advancing materials science and additive manufacturing in Alaska by developing the state's first 3D concrete printed house and a rural-specific infrastructure printing robot. Through partnerships with leading research institutions and local organizations, the Commission is paving the way for utilizing local materials like gravel and biomass to reduce supply chain costs, enhance automation, and tackle workforce challenges, all while driving innovation in construction technology. For water and sanitation, about 20% of Alaska Native homes in rural Alaska lack access to water and sewer services. Many solid waste systems in rural Alaska also lack protections for human health and the environment. The sanitation program benefits from the Commission's unique transfer authority in several ways. We have a partnership with Indian Health Service with a transfer from the Commission to Indian Health Service, and then we also have partnerships where EPA transfers funds to the Commission to consolidate and combine funding for the progress of rural Alaska. Recognizing the benefits that broadband brings to rural area, since 2019, utilizing just under $3 million, the Commission has initiated comprehensive outreach efforts to assist and fund in-depth applications to achieve 187 independent 2.5 gigahertz FCC tribal licenses, in addition to our recent leveraging of over $200 million in broadband deployment since 2022. For workforce and economic development, we have found timely success through reinvigorating the regional Alaska development organizations, each with a $75,000 grant and a simple instruction to double that funding to promote a pipeline of projects within a year. This led to a partnership leveraging $49 million award from the EDA's Build Back Better Regional Challenge. This award is anticipated to grow the mariculture industry to a target of $325 million per year, supporting 1,800 jobs across the state from Ketchikan to southeast to Unalaska, far out in the Aleutian chain, over the next 20 years. Other innovative partnerships include promoting the recreation economy, both through direct awards to recipients and financially participating in EPA's recreation economy for rural communities program for at least 2 projects in Alaska. Our Village Infrastructure Protection Program works with tribal, local, regional, state, and federal partners to continue to support the resilience of Alaskan communities by protecting public investment in critical infrastructure. We fund the planning, partnership, and construction efforts to move communities to safer environments while also protecting communities in place and assisting in a managed retreat. For land and water resources, we are in the beginning stages of setting up a forestry, soil, and water conservation program, partnering with USDA Forest Service and Natural Resource Conservation Service. This program will provide technical assistance to soil and water conservation districts, match funding when needed, and work with other agriculture producers to promote food security, wood use innovations, biomass energy, insulation and other building materials, biofuel mitigation, and stream habitat improvements. Lastly, as the only Alaska-headquartered federal agency, the Denali Commission serves as a critical hub for White House-led working groups and Arctic policy. As a principal member of the Arctic Executive Steering Committee under the Executive Office of the President and the Interagency Arctic Policy Committee, the Commission offers direct advocacy for pressing scientific and policy needs. This includes updating the statewide threat assessment for IARPIC's risk management and hazard mitigation priorities, asset mapping for infrastructure prediction, and long-term data management. The Commission actively promotes Arctic security through its involvement through the National Strategy for the Arctic Region and other intergovernmental efforts, recognizing that a resilient Arctic is essential for broader security. The regional commissions were all created as a federal-state partnership to focus on the needs of rural communities, and the Denali Commission prides itself in the successes seen from working closely with the state of Alaska, federal partners, tribes, tribal consortia, and other non-federal entities to address these growing challenges. After 25 years of service, and particularly in the last 6 years, I am quite proud of the progress we've made in supporting Alaska's future.
Thank you. So we'll go to the question portion. I would go first, but I'm going to cede my time to Senator Bozeman as we have a busy day, and he's got a busy day, so Senator Bozeman.
Thank you. I've
And then I'll
got to
go to
run to
Senator
the floor in
Stabenow.
just a minute. I really wanted to hang around and just thank you all for all the work that you do. Your budgets are not very great, but those dollars that you have, being able to intervene and really knowing the communities that you're serving makes a huge difference. But let me ask you, Dr. Wiggins, in recent years, Arkansas has been devastated by natural disasters from tornadoes and wind to historic flooding along the Arkansas River, the impacts of which are still being dealt with. Once the dust has settled and the rubble has been cleared, communities struggle to continue growth and retain residents. In what ways has DRA assisted in disaster recovery efforts, and I know you have, in Arkansas and the rest of the Delta?
Yes, sir. Thank you for that question. Many communities, as you mentioned, have been impacted by disasters across our region. We have been working actually in Wynne, Arkansas. As a matter of fact, the mayor of Wynne, Arkansas just recently completed our Leadership Institute that we operate at DRA. And so we are leaning in disaster impacted communities, meeting with local officials, talking with them on how they best support. And part of our grant making program allows us to look a little bit deeper, particularly in those areas impacted by disasters. And so we're there, we are present, and that's the issue that we continue to remain top of mind for us as well.
Good, very good. Thank you. I noticed, Mr. Sanchez, in your testimony, you talked about grant writers, and how difficult it was to have the knowledge and stuff. Chairwoman Stabenow is on our committee, and I have the pleasure of working with her. This is something that we hear constantly. I know that Congressman Clyburn, the same thing. It shouldn't be that, if you have a good education, that you have to hire a $30,000 grant writer in a very, very small community. Can you all, maybe you could start, Ms. Reed, could you just comment on that, the problem, if you're seeing the same thing that we're hearing about in the Ag Committee and the rest of our committees about how difficult that is. I know we had a lady and a mayor in Mountainburg, Arkansas, that as a result of getting the project started and done, we were able to knock out the biggest pocket that we had of people that were hauling water and things. But it, again, the problems they had of figuring out the grant, trying to get a grant writer, we were able to step in. Lots of people stepped in to help out, people like you. But can you comment about that just a little bit so we can get that on the record?
Absolutely. Thank you for that question. And it is an ongoing and broad problem. The approach that we've taken at SCRC is a tiered approach. We have the commission, and we've entered into agreements with the states. We've entered into agreements with the local development districts who are on the ground and work with these communities on a daily basis, and the community organizations. And the support that we've given and we are giving to the local development districts is just that, so that they will be able to help entities like described who can't write those grants, but the local development districts will be able to support them in that way. And we're building capacity all the way up the pipeline so that we don't continue to have those issues.
Yeah, very good. Well, I hope that we can all work together I know, again, the chairwoman has been a great leader on this, and Congressman Clyburn also. Just, there's no excuse for making things so very difficult. And so that's one of the things in government that doesn't cost any money. That's something that would save our municipalities a great deal of money. So, again, thank you all again for all that you do. We really do appreciate your efforts. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Senator Capito, thank you for presiding. I think Senator Stabenow is next. Welcome. Good to see you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, Ranking Member, and to my friend and Ranking Member in the Ag Committee. I couldn't agree more. We know we just pull our hair out and trying to cut the paperwork and particularly get small communities the help that they need. And I also want to join in saying thank you to all of you. You're doing an incredible job encouraging economic development, boosting community developments, particularly in rural and academically distressed areas. So thank you for that. And Ms. Clyburn Reed, on top of everything else, you have your dad sitting here, so no pressure. It's good to see you, Congressman. But it is so important, and we would not have gotten where we are without our federal co-chairs. And I have to say that I'm especially excited now because we have the creation of a new regional commission. I appreciate so much the leadership of the committee in helping us get the Great Lakes Authority. So we're looking forward to that. I was pleased to lead the bill in the Senate. My friend, Congresswoman Marcy Kaptur really led and created this whole push. Has done a marvelous job in the House and moving things forward. And we have the first round of funding for that program, and we know that combining federal money with state resources, as all of you have done, that this new Great Lakes Authority is going to serve as a really important new economic development agency for the Great Lakes region. And the partnership is going to give us, as you have all talked about, tools to create jobs, boost the economy, transform communities, and I'm really excited about President Biden's nomination of Matt Kaplan to serve as one of your colleagues as the first federal co-chair of the Great Lakes Commission. in order for them to move ahead, obviously, they have to have that leadership. So I look forward with the committee to be approving his nomination, confirming him. He's well qualified for the position, having 2 decades of experience working on Great Lakes issues, which we like to say the ocean without the salt. And 95% of the fresh water in our country surrounds us. So we consider that a real duty to protect that water. And I'm hopeful that we can join together on a bipartisan basis to confirm this important position, because the sooner the Great Lakes can begin its important work, the sooner Michiganders and residents of all the Great Lakes are going to feel the benefits as they are feeling in your regions. So a question, Mr. Saunders, in your testimony, you stated that regional commissions are one of the most impactful models for directing federal investment, public investment, to rural communities. And I couldn't agree more. Can you elaborate a bit more on how the Northern Border Regional Commission has been effective with rural communities?
Absolutely. Thank you, Senator. I appreciate the question. And I think there's some themes that Senator Boozman raised as well. My time as a staffer on Capitol Hill, I recall a time where it took an act of Congress for another agency to rewrite one of its grant programs where the application was 80 pages long, and no community where there's a volunteer select board member working hard at night was going to be able to complete that process. That agency revised it to 8 pages. You all have given us great flexibility in designing our program so we can regularly revise our applications and think about what the capacity of those communities we're trying to serve really is. And we can also match technical assistance. Dr. Clyburn-Reed spoke to that. We have resources that we distribute through our state members that help organizations fill out applications and even really get ideas from a concept to an application. We find that that is one of the biggest struggles for really rural places, is that, you know, folks may sit around the coffee shop and say, I wish this would happen in my town, but it takes an effort to turn that idea into something that folks can rally around and then turn into a grant application. So we provide assistance to communities to move ideas from a concept phase to a project phase, and have targeted resources in a couple of different ways to do that.
And you also talked in your comments about non-monetary contributions to the region, which you've talked about. But could you expand a little bit more what that looks like?
Right. So we see both convenings, the ability to get folks together to focus on a specific topic. I referenced outdoor recreation. We saw, you know, the Northeast is known for lots of outdoor recreation, but we weren't seeing much coordination among that industry, and not a connection between folks working to promote outdoor recreation and businesses that sold goods. And so we held this symposium to try and strengthen those connections. We saw each of our states create offices of outdoor recreation. We saw state legislatures look at the work we had done and create their own grant programs. So we see these convening power really as a way that we're not making a grant, but that we're bringing people together around a topic. Dr. Clyburn-Reed also spoke about the J-1 visa program. In our region, that program doesn't cost a healthcare facility anything to apply to get a doctor to come work in a rural distressed place, and we can contribute to better health outcomes through that program.
Terrific. Thanks so much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And we thank you. Senator Capito.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank all of you for being here. Just curious, just to start real quick question. Ms. Fenton mentioned, obviously, it's the Denali Commission is just one state. Where is your commission located? Just go through real quick, and then I'll ask a deeper question here.
Our Delta Regional Authority's headquarter office is in Clarksdale, Mississippi.
Okay, thanks.
And SCRC is headquartered in Columbia, South Carolina.
Concord, New Hampshire, but our team is entirely remote.
Okay.
Las Cruces, New Mexico.
Great, good, thank you. In my initial statement, I talked about coordination with the EDA. Ms. Fenton again mentioned a large grant that she had procured with the EDA grant. But I didn't hear much about the EDA from the four of you. So could you briefly speak about your coordination effort with EDA and how you think we could make these work better together if they're not, well, You can always do better. So why don't you tell me about what kind of coordination, and we'll just go down the row here.
No, we work wonderfully with EDA. As a matter of fact, just last month, we announced a little bit over $4 million of leveraged EDA funding throughout the DRA region. One particular project was in Pine Bluff, Arkansas, for about $1.3 million, which was unique about it, was the opportunity to leverage EDA funding. We had investments from the Walton Family Foundation as well, so bringing in philanthropic funding as well. But we work hand in hand with EDA.
What was that? What kind of project was that?
It was a small business and retail incubator in downtown Pine Bluff, Arkansas, where they were revitalizing the downtown area, old building, putting it back into use, and it had great community support and was able to leverage funding through EDA and support from the Walton Family Foundation as well.
Perfect. Thank you. Yeah. Next.
At SCRC, we are just beginning to build those partnerships with federal agencies. The descriptor that was just given by Dr. Wiggins sounds very much like something that we can replicate throughout our region. There are several buildings that are waiting for use. They're sitting empty, so it would be great if we could have those partnerships, and we are working on leveraging that.
Great.
At SCRC.
Thank you. Mr. Saunders?
We utilize a lot of the same local partners. Senator Carper talked about none of us really being job creators. EDA utilizes economic development districts. We often utilize those same organizations for our local development districts and invest in them to take the plans they produce for EDA to put into action. We similarly have some projects where we co-invest in a rural place with 5,000 people. If there's a $10 million, $20 million project, the organizers of that project aren't going to be able to use one source to get it done. So they may talk to EDA, they may talk to us. We're really cognizant of what that agency can and cannot do. And so things that may not pencil out well when a project comes together, say housing development, that's not going to score well in an EDA application, but is a really dire need in many rural places. So we look for the spots that they cannot fund and try to move into those as well.
Oh, good. Okay. Mr. Sanchez?
We are incorporating the EDA sets plans into our 5-year plans.
Okay.
So that we can co-invest in projects. Additionally, the local economic development districts are eligible to apply on behalf of distressed communities. So they are the ones who administer and follow EDA sets plans. So we anticipate we'll have a lot of co-investment.
Okay. And Ms. Fenton, you mentioned one project. Are you working? Do you have one EDA representative in Alaska for your state solely? I was going to say that we have to work closely with our Yeah, you need the microphone.
I was going to say that we are happy to work closely with our one EDA representative in Alaska, along with our Alaska Regional Development Organizations, and pairing that EDA opportunity with Denali Commission and how can we leverage those opportunities, either through technical assistance or we can close with the various applicants to really put together a fundable project that makes sense for Alaska's economy.
Well, I know the emphasis on infrastructure. These are expensive projects. No one funding source, unless you're very lucky, can actually cover all this, and that's what the coordination. I will note that I heard in almost everybody's statement that you do quite a bit of coordination with USDA Rural Development. And then with this broadband money coming into the states, that's going to be a really critical piece for all your commissions. It certainly is in our state. You've mentioned a couple best practices. It seems like you all kind of have compared and talked a little bit. Sometimes you don't have to reinvent the wheel. You can just use good ideas from other commissions. So Dr. Clyburn-Reed mentioned the J1, and you mentioned it again. Mr. Saunders, do you have any other best practices that you'd want to share right here that maybe works particularly well for your commission? Dr. Wiggins?
Sure, I think one of the areas, and we've all talked about regional capacity building. So many of our communities we're serving that are small, rural, part-time mayors, part-time, alder folks
Right.
who are leading. And so we've really leaned in a lot to capacity building by working with established partners like community development financial institutions, university partners, other philanthropic organizations, trying to leverage our resources, their resources, in a way to think about, while we can't write grants, there are institutions who can work with them and support them along that way. And so capacity building has been one of those things, top of the line, making
Right.
sure that rural communities aren't left out of the amounts of historic federal funding that's available for infrastructure.
Anything else? Anybody would like to? Yes, go ahead.
Well, one thing I wanted to add was to look at our universities and colleges in our region. One thing that SCRC is approaching is an HBCU convening. 38 of the 103 HBCUs in the country are in the Southeast Crescent region. So it just makes sense for us to form that partnership and convene them so that we can talk about ways to benefit from SCRC. We have had no applicants from the HBCUs. In our first round, it's just the first round. So we have no applicants. So we want to make sure that that is not a resource that we're leaving
Right, that's good. Mr. Saunders, do you have something you want to mention?
These are some of the external ways we coordinate, as you noted, very much on an internal basis. We share ideas about grant programs and contracting. Senator Stabenow mentioned the nominee for the Great Lakes Authority. We've already engaged with him to talk about developing a vision. So there's both this external work that happens as well as internal best practices that we can share to be effective.
Okay, Mr. Sanchez, did you have something?
Yeah, I appreciate the support from the other regional commissions who have given us a guiding light. Our commission tries to use our authority, our flexibility to fill in the gaps what other agencies are not funding. For an example is, residents often bear the cost of laying down service pipes from the
To the
main
home.
line. That's something that many federal agencies don't cover. Another example is the pre-development studies. We can fund engineering studies, archaeological studies, and those happen to be barriers for distressed communities. So we're trying to fill in the gaps and co-invest.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Before we turn to Senator Whitehouse, I'm going to come back to you, Mr. Saunders. Who would you say is the most famous country and western singer ever born in Pine Bluff, Arkansas? Would you believe Johnny Cash? He is a native of Pine Bluff, Arkansas. I'm sitting here thinking, what famous person? That's Johnny Cash. His biggest hit song ever, written by his wife, June, was "I Fell Into a Burning Ring of Fire." And we want to make sure that folks in communities across the country don't fall into a burning ring of fire, and if they do, that we can pull them out. And with that, Sheldon, you're recognized. I'll be out I'm going to leave for just a second, and I'll be back right away. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, you are a fountain of rock and roll trivia.
My wife says it's worthless information, but I promoted my first concert when I was a student at Ohio State, and I love music. I've been doing this for much of my life. If I could do anything in my life, I'd play third base for the Detroit Tigers and promote concerts. Maybe I'll have a chance to try that out in about 2 months.
The only one who's worse than the chairman is Leader Schumer,
Oh, yeah, he's good.
whose mind is an absolute closet of old song lyrics. And when I consider how much he has to think about every day, the idea that he has still space for all those lyrics.
Well, he has his priorities in the right
mind.
place.
Anyway, thank you for this hearing. Commissioner Clyburn-Reed, I'm particularly glad that you are here because you've attracted a legendary legislator who is here in his role as proud papa. And I, too, have a daughter, so I know how wonderful the role of proud papa is. So thank you for that. And I want to thank the ranking member and the chairman because our recent EDA reauthorization included our Southern New England Regional Commission. Mr. Clyburn will remember well how hard my colleague David Cicilline worked to try to get this Southern New England Regional Commission across the line. He actually once even got it into the House NDAA bill, which is usually a sign that it's headed for passage. But one thing or another always prevented it, but now it is in the EDA reauthorization, along with the Mid-Atlantic one, and we're looking forward to finally getting that accomplished. And I'm particularly interested in what each of your advice would be to a senator who has, knock wood, a brand new regional commission to work with. What is the best piece of advice you could give me, and what is the worst thing we should steer away from? Mr. Wiggins, let me start with you and just go right across the table.
Sure. Senator, thank you for that question. I mean, I think the best piece of advice is the work that you're already doing now by being present in your state and your region. I think the most support that regional commissioners look for is being able to listen to stakeholders, whether it's federal, local, elected officials who we're serving, and so being able to provide your thoughts and opinions on where resources need to go. It should be top of mind for whoever's leading commission. So I think that would be my best piece of advice.
Thank you. Commissioner.
Thank you for the question. And since I've just gone through this exercise to build up a commission, the best advice is to get to know who it is that you will serve. You cannot do anything for anybody without talking to them first. We have all sat around enough meetings and tables to come up with ideas of how to make things better for people without talking to the actual people. So that is my advice, to ensure that you're communicating with those communities directly so that they feel part of the process and they feel heard.
Commissioner.
Our commission was founded with the northern forest in mind, and as I mentioned, the kind of faltering forestry industry as a call to action. If I'm not mistaken, there's a similar concern around the historic boat building industries in southern New England and some other common themes that drove the economy there. We were able to unite states around an idea of either to help reinvigorate this industry or to think about other paths forward for the communities where that was no longer a viable opportunity. Outdoor recreation proved to be one of those calling cards for communities where forestry had passed them by and wasn't going to be the future. So I think finding some of those common themes that ties the region together and are easy rallying cries. Governors don't know before a commission is stood up what these organizations are supposed to do. And so finding common themes that bring them to the table, particularly if they're going to be committing state resources to their operation, is pretty important.
Yeah, well, ours are pretty straightforward. It's blue economy stuff and the risk to coastal economies of sea level rise, storm risk, insurance difficulty, all things that come that, frankly, we're seeing worst case scenarios beginning to play out in Florida right now as property insurance becomes unaffordable or unavailable. Commissioner?
Thank you, Senator. My piece of advice would be to form partnerships. As I've been establishing this commission, I'm surprised at how excited people are in the region. And I think it's because the commission offers a lot of flexibilities and capabilities that other federal agencies do not, and can help solve problems that have existed for generations. So those partnerships will be critical and will open up co-investment opportunities.
Got it. Ms. Fenton?
I am co-chair, like interim federal co-chair Fenton. I don't know why. It's not honorable, apparently. I would echo the partnerships, determine the gaps of other programs, possibly ineligible costs. That leaves room for innovations for our programmatic flexibility. I would say institute a technical assistance or capacity building program to stand up your local development districts. Lean on the development organizations of your region. And lastly, have priority lists. Put together some data. Find priority lists to avoid grant applications. You're streamlining administrative efficiencies and putting the funding and the projects in the areas that need it most.
Okay, well, that's all very helpful. I hope that's advice we get to put to practical use soon when we have our own commission. And I will say that I was pleased to hear Senator Sullivan's compliments to you and the commission, because he and I do a lot of work in areas like ocean plastics and international fisheries protection, and he's very good to work with on those issues. So thank you very much.
Let's talk about the blue economy and have them give me a call.
Okay. Thanks, Chairman.
Sheldon, thank you very much. Maybe a question for Ms. Fenton and Ms. Clyburn Reed. And the question I would have for both of you would be...
Chairman, can I interrupt on a
Sure, please.
Unrelated point? Yeah. The curtains are open today. The room has daylight in it. Thank you for that. I liked that.
I remember saying here one day, "Let there be light," and next thing you know. All right, Ms. Fenton, Ms. Clyburn Reed, take it away. One benefit of a regional approach is that the assistance that you provide for communities can be tailored to the unique challenges in each of your regions, including challenges that are presented by various extreme weather events. Question for both of you. Ms. Fenton, as you well know, Alaska, like many of our states, is susceptible to any number of natural disasters like earthquakes, like tidal waves, and more. Would you share with us how your commission helps communities of all sizes recover from the impact of extreme weather and other natural disasters?
Absolutely. We attempt to address risk mitigation through a number of processes. One is putting together essentially a priority list. Where are the communities most impacted? And that's called the statewide threat assessment, and that's a partnership through Corps of Engineers, the University of Alaska Fairbanks, and other organizations to characterize the risk of flooding, permafrost thaw, and erosion, and where are the areas we need to look at first. Then we pair that assessment with a technical assistance arm, the Center for Environmentally Threatened Communities, that proactively reaches out to these communities, works with them to determine what challenges they are experiencing and how to create a project to address that concern, whether it's protection in place or a managed retreat away from the threat, or a full relocation in very few circumstances. And then we partner with our other colleagues, and federal and state and tribal, to look at what other types of projects we can help protect our communities and protect the public investment into this infrastructure.
Okay, thanks very much. Let's turn to Ms. Clyburn Reed. Southeast region, like I think most regions of our country, is also vulnerable to extreme weather events, including nor'easters, including hurricanes. Same question, would you tell us how your commission helps helps communities of all sizes recover from the impacts of extreme weather and other natural disasters?
Thank you very much for the question. And every state in the Southeast Crescent region is along the Atlantic coast. That is unique to us. So we are focusing on finding sustainable economic opportunities, reducing poverty, fortifying the infrastructure that will eliminate vulnerabilities to natural disasters. We have not yet received any grants to do those things. However, through our outreach efforts, that is what we're going to encourage along the coastlines, those communities and counties along the coast to do. So we haven't had the opportunity to do that just yet, but we are definitely looking to do that, and it is in our strategic plan to do so.
All right, thanks so much. Thanks. We've been joined by the only other retired Navy captain in serving in the United States Senate. Thank you for stopping by, and thanks for being such a faithful member of this committee. I understand Senator Kelly doesn't have a question he wants to ask at this time, but thank you for making the time to join us today. Let's see, Mr. Sanchez, the Southwest Border Regional Commission is, I think, the newest commission represented here today. Is that correct?
That's correct, Senator.
We know that you are currently working to establish all the processes, all the procedures necessary to make the grant awards. Question, when do you expect to complete that process? And what challenges did you face or have you faced you and your team in developing these policies. Second half of the question is, are there changes that Congress should consider to the grant-making process for regional commissions that would make this process more user-friendly or more accessible to outside stakeholders? Go ahead.
Thank you for the question, Senator. We have been developing processes throughout this journey since 2003. We have reached agreement on funding allocations, how we administer our grant program, how much state administrative fund each state has to provide. Those states have provided funding for the commission. We are finalizing our 5-year plan and would publish in November. We anticipate opening.
How long have you been working on it?
Since we started, since June 2023.
Okay.
Each state is tasked with creating their own plan. The commission as well unifies those plans and conducts public outreach to ensure that we're aligned with the community's needs.
Okay, thank you.
Moving forward, we will open up our webinar in December for our first grant competition, and we anticipate having the competition in the first quarter of 2025. Through this process, I think some of the challenges have been, since the commission is new, we have to get registered into every federal system, whether that be grants.gov, SANS.gov, the Treasury Department. And those systems often don't recognize the commission because they don't have the, so it takes a conversation with those agencies to ensure them that we are a federal agency, that we are authorized to do this work. In terms of grants, I think just facilitating the reporting requirement for grantees. We've tried to do that as we created our grant program. We have a simplified application. We have a 3-page pre-application where we screen applicants to ensure that they qualify and meet the basic requirements so that we don't have folks filling out 20 pages and then being denied. So we're trying to be very straightforward with our applicants.
All right, thank you. I have a question, I think maybe for the whole, for the entire panel. And I would like to hear from each of you on this, but each of you were once newly confirmed, I think each of you were once newly confirmed federal co-chairs. And apparently, you've probably learned a lot through your experiences in running a commission. What is maybe one thing that you know now in that regard that you wish you had known on day one when you started? I'll ask you, what is maybe one thing that you know now that you wish you had known on day one when you started? Mr. Wiggins.
Well, I think one of the things coming into the door at Delta Regional Authority, 25 years would be our anniversary next year. And coming into the door, we've had to do a lot of internal modernization work within the agency. So that was one of the things that I would point out in terms of learning and knowing. But the reason and rationale for doing this work remains the same. Our purpose is to serve the people in our region, to make it easier for people to get the resources they need to help thrive in communities. And so I think while I've learned that process of modernization in a government sense, the purpose and our mission remains the same regardless of the work that we have to do internally. We have to deliver externally for the communities in which we're serving.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Clyburn-Reed.
Being so new to the beginning, this is a very difficult question. There are about 7 things going through my head. But one of the...
Well, you go ahead and pick the top 6.
Pick the top 6. What I've learned in traveling the region and learning and doing the research about the region is the decades of despair that I've seen. So prioritizing the wants and needs throughout the region is difficult with 51 million people. Not wanting to let anyone down or tell anyone no. Particularly the lady who has to hold her parasol over the stove in order to cook dinner. So as you were asking the question, I thought back to her and the conversation that I had with her. And the flexibility that we are given does allow for some monies to get out earlier than if they were to apply somewhere else. However, there's still some paperwork that is quite treacherous to get through in order to get the money. So that's what I wish I would have known from the beginning, is how long it would take to meet the needs of those people who are desperately in need of help.
All right, Mr. Saunders.
I would echo some of those sentiments. I think there's, we're all appointed to these positions and have a limited amount of time to serve. There's an eagerness to move very quickly, but a need to balance that with the speed that government should take to make sure that it can adequately account for all the needs of the communities you're trying to serve. We have really great models with peer commissions like the Appalachian Regional Commission that have been doing this work for decades, and many of us, I think, have a hope that we can embody the best components of that commission. But the three of us in the middle here have been authorized for 15 years and are varying degrees of maturity. And so to try and activate what at a level that ARC is, while still being a newer commission, requires a balance of desire to move with speed, but also at a pace where everybody can participate.
All right, thank you. Mr. Sanchez.
I would agree with my colleagues. I think what I wish I knew was the timeline it takes to implement some of these programs, and even to purchase a grant management software system that is FedRAMP and cybersecurity compliant and will meet the needs of your customers and will be easy to use and will be under budget. So that is the process of acquiring those things takes time, more time than I anticipated it would. And then trying not to pass on that bureaucracy to our applicants, trying to somehow simplify our application process, I think are the challenges that I wish I knew a bit earlier.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Fenton?
Well, I think the commission as a whole and myself, we understand the challenges. We know the difficult logistics. We know the long time frames and schedules, the needs for partnerships and relationships. I guess it's the part that has been educational for me, and I look forward to supporting our next federal co-chair that comes on board with some of the understanding of the coordination and importance of success stories here in DC, and the EOP OMB approval process and some of that official process that we are not as familiar with on the East Coast, at least myself. We know our colleagues in Alaska. It's really some of that outside coordination that can be mitigated, I suppose, a little easier next time.
Okay, good. Thank you all for responding to that. Earlier today, I was privileged to speak over breakfast with to a number of my colleagues. Every week or two, usually I think on a Wednesday morning in the Capitol, there's a breakfast, and it's an opportunity. It's hosted by the Senate chaplain, and it's a chance for members to share just a bit about themselves, and in some cases, like what their values are and where they learned them, and how do they use those values to guide their service to our country. And I talked today about my own parents, and they were big believers in golden rule: treat other people the way you want to be treated. My dad was a big environmentalist, big hunter fisherman, and my mom was real hugely interested in protecting this planet, to God's gift from to all of us. A bunch of my uncles, my dad all served in World War II in Korea. One of my uncles was killed in a kamikaze attack on his aircraft carrier. So my sister and I were basically instilled in a very early age a requirement to serve, expectation to serve our country, and which in some ways led me to come here. Those are a few things I shared with my colleagues this morning over breakfast, which I was pleased to do, and I think they fell on fertile soil. So we'll see. I have a question for you, Ms. Clyburn Reed. It's not every day that one of our witnesses actually brings along a mom or a dad out in the audience to listen and to tune in to the hearing. And I've known your dad for a long time. Served with him in the House. He won't admit it, but it's true. But maybe you could mention for one of us a lesson or two from your parents that actually helps guide you in the work that you do on the commission that you lead.
Thank you for that question, and I am honored to have the support of the Congressman, Father Congressman, here today and every day. I am also honored to have had a mother who supported everything that we did, whether she agreed with it or not. And tomorrow morning at 9:01 a.m. will be the 5th anniversary of her death.
Oh, my God.
And I will be having coffee with her. So the advice that both of them have instilled in me, I think you've spoke about it already, is to do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And as I travel the 210,000 square miles of SCRC, that's exactly what's in my head. How would I want someone to treat me if I were in that situation? And that is how I approach the tenacity in which I try to get money out of the door. And it's difficult to do with the pace that we are held to, but that is what is in my mind. We should not be still suffering from the 2015 historic flood. And I'm seeing that as I travel. So that's what is in my heart, what is in my mind, what is in my soul, and that's the way I approach this job.
Oh, that's
and
great.
I thank you for it.
Well, your mom's looking down. I'm sure she's saying, "That's my girl." That's great. My mom once told my sister and me, she said, the golden rule, treat other people the way you want to be treated, is in every major religion of the world. I don't care if you're Protestant or Catholic or Jew, Buddhist or Hindu, it's in every one. It's something that's in every scripture, sacred scripture, maybe something we should pay attention to. And I'm pleased to hear that you reminded us of that today. In closing, I want to thank our witnesses for your time. We want to thank you for your testimony today and for the leadership that you provide. The work of our regional commissions is so important for helping disadvantaged communities through our nation, as you've reminded us today. This hearing has motivated me. I think it's motivated members of our staff, Senator Capito, and others to keep working, to reauthorize our regional commissions and the Economic Development Administration. For some final housekeeping, senators will be allowed to submit questions for the record through the close of business on October the 2nd. We're going to compile those questions. We're going to send them out to each of you, to our witnesses, and we're going to ask you to reply to us by October 16th. October 16th, keep that in mind. Anything else, folks? No? All right. And with that, this hearing's been a good hearing. This hearing is adjourned. Thank you so much. God bless.